everyone, this is Nitij and I'm back again with another video. And this video is about the functions in JavaScript language and the different ways in which we can use them. So a function in the JavaScript is the same like they are in other languages like C, C++, C, C Sharp, Java, and then PHP, etc. So a function also works in the same way. So it is basically a piece of code which can be encapsulated in a single entity, and we can call that piece of code again and again without repeating the code statements inside the code in various places. So let's get started. Over here there is a blank HTML page, and there goes some HTML. Now I am going to explain the all of these different ways in which we can use the functions in the JavaScript. So the first is the normal functions. So the normal way to create, or the standard way to create a function in JavaScript, is to first write the function keyword, and then we have to write the name of the function. Let's name it my function, and then inside the function body we can write some code, and this function can accept some arguments. So let's say that we are accepting a number as an argument, and then in the function body I am just writing a text on the console. The argument value is, and then we can concatenate the value of the argument with this entire string, and that's it. So to execute this function we first have to write the name of the function, and then we have to write this opening and closing curly brackets. The good thing is that we can call this function either on the either before the initialization or the declaration, or after the declaration, because uh, when the code executes, then the functions are passed first. So we can call the function either from its top or either from the below. So that was the standard way to use a function. Now what we can do is, instead of, I'm just going to comment out this one, and instead of directly creating a function, we can put the name of the function inside a variable, and then we can assign an anonymous function implementation to this variable, and that's it. Now but to use this function this time, we have to call this function after it has been assigned to this variable. So if we try to call this function before it has been initialized into this variable, then the browser or the console will log an error. So we cannot do that. We can only call this function after it has been assigned to the variable. But this is not the case when we are simply creating the function directly. Now the third one is functions as arguments. Now the best thing about a function in JavaScript language is that we can pass them around as arguments, and then we can return them as return values from other functions. So the thing is, let's say that we have a function, and let's again name it my function. Now this function can accept an argument, and we can call this function argument as another function. And to call this, we can simply call this my function, and then as an argument we can send in another anonymous function which would let's say which could log something onto the console. So right now this anonymous function is acting as an argument for this my function, and then inside the body of my function we are simply executing this function which is being sent as an argument. So this is the way in which we can send a function as an argument, and we can also return another function as a return value. So let's say that we have a function which is called as let's have a different name this time. So return function. Now as the name implies, this function is going to return another function. So we can either return an anonymous function, and let's have some code inside it, or we can first get the function inside a variable, and then we can return the variable itself. Both will work. This one is shorter, so we can use either one of these two approaches. So this was about how we can return a function as a return value from another function. And now comes the part of self-executing function. Now to execute a function we have to write the name of the function, and then we have to write the opening and closing curly brackets. But if we want to execute a function as soon as they are declared, we can create a self-executing function. You can know more about self-executing function in another one of my video in which I have explained them in detail and how they can be used in different scenarios. So this is a function which will invoke as soon as it has been passed by the browser, and the function the body which is in the code which is inside the function body will execute as soon as it is read by the browser. So this is a self-executing function, and we don't have to call it explicitly. It will execute on its own. That's a good thing, right? Okay, so functions as closers. Okay, so before I start explaining how we can use a function as a closer, I would like to point out first that there could be no private fields or private variables inside the JavaScript language. However, there are ways to create a private state for certain objects, and we can do that by first we have to create a function with a name closer function. Alright, now let's have a variable and name it message, and the value of the message is hello world. And now there is a function which is called as write message equals to function, and then inside this function we can simply log the value of this message, and then finally we can return an object which will have a property with the name of write message. Let's have the W capital because this is going to be a publicly exposed property, and then we can assign this function to this property, and then that's it. Now the thing is that this message and this write message members are not accessible in the global scope because they are inside this function. But the interesting thing is that we are returning an object from this function, and we can use this object later in different parts of the JavaScript code. So because we are returning an object, and this object is holding the reference to this write message function, and this function is holding a reference to this message variable, these two members will not be collected by the garbage collector, and they will basically act as the private fields for this object, and they will not be accessible outside of this function or to any other object. So basically this function is acting like a closer, and we have successfully implemented a private state for this literal object implementation. So we can call this write message after the object is returned, and that's it. And the last one is functions as delegates. So we can create functions which can act as delegates. So let's suppose that we have an input, not input, let's say that we have an anchor link which says, I don't know, let's say it says click me. It is not going to do anything, but still we are going to wire up a function with its click event, and it can have an href, and let's also have an id for this which says lnk click me. Now to create this actually right, so what we have to do is we have an object which has a name property. Let's say the name is, I don't know, John Doe, and we have to write this name in a div, and to do that first we have to wire up the click event of the anchor. So first let's get the reference of the anchor link. Dot on click equals to function which is empty right now, and also let's return false so that we will not be having a complete page post back. And then what we can do is we can okay, we also need to again get the reference of another element which is the, what was the name of it, yes, output, which is a div, and dot inner html equals to obj dot name. Now this time this obj will be accessible, but in an application which is divided in different modules, it is not necessary that we can directly access this obj every time. So instead of accessing this obj, we can access the name using this keyword, but for that this will always point to the calling context. So the calling context is going to be this anchor link. So this keyword will point to the anchor, but we want this to point to this obj. So for that what we can do is we can create a delegate out of this function with a fixed scope, and the scope's value is this obj. So now we won't have to write this obj, and then we can get the reference of this delegate. Let's say that we have var click delegate equals to function this entire thing, and then we can simply sign the on click with the click delegate, and we can put this click delegate inside a namespace of the instead of namespace entirely for different delegates, and then we can then assign, or we can wire up the appropriate delegate with the events. And the thing is that the delegates will always have a fixed scope. So yes, that is another good use of functions. So I have told you around 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 different uses of a function in the JavaScript language. So I hope that you will find this video informative. For any questions, you can use the comments section, and you can also suggest some new topics which I might cover in the future in the video tutorials. So for now, that's it, guys. Thank you for hearing me out, and have a nice day. Bye.